Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the WVU College of Law. And welcome to everyone else joining us online. My name is Greg Bowman. I have the honor and the pleasure and the privilege of serving as the Dean for the West Virginia University College of Law, and today marks a very special occasion for our university. We are here to commemorate the official kickoff for Diversity Week, which is going to be held campus-wide today through Saturday, September 21st, and today marks the first State of Diversity address to be given by our very own Vice President for the WVU Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Meshea Poore. We're very excited about it, and before she comes to the podium, I'd like to brag a bit about her, tell you a little bit about her. Meshea L. Poore is a longtime champion of underrepresented people, and she serves as Vice President for our Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at West Virginia University. And in that role, she motivates the Mountaineer family to recognize the value in diversity and to create transformational change. An attorney who served in the West Virginia House of Delegates from 2009 to 2014, she is an accomplished and sought-after motivational speaker, public and political leadership consultant, and strategist. And that is understating it. Any of you who have heard her before, you know how excellent she is as a public speaker, and any of you who haven't, you're in for a treat. The Women's Campaign Fund named her a game changer during her campaign for the U.S. House of Representatives for the West Virginia 2nd Congressional District. And in 2017, Meshea Poore became the first African-American woman to be named president of the West Virginia State Bar since its 1947 founding. And as an aside, on a personal note, I regularly attend those Board of Governors meetings, and I had the honor to watch her and benefit from her leadership during that important year. Prior to starting her own practice, she was an attorney in the office of the Kanawha County Public Defender in Charleston, West Virginia. Poore earned her bachelor's degree from Howard University in Washington, D.C., and her law degree from Southern University Law Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She also graduated from the Women's Campaign School at Yale University. As she delivers our first State of Diversity address, she will share with us her vision for the Mountaineer community, discuss challenges, opportunities, and bring a charge for all of us to build a more inclusive WVU. Please join me in welcoming Vice President Poore.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Well, good afternoon. How are you all? Oh, I'm going to need some energy, so let's get started. Good afternoon. To do this type of work, you got to have energy, and I cannot do it by myself. So you're going to hear me talk to you a little bit about getting engaged, right? When you all walked in, you should have heard a beautiful soundtrack. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, too. But before I begin, we're our Mountaineer family. So when I say Mountaineer family, that means I'm talking to you, all right? Don't question, don't look around, just know I'm talking to you. It all should lay within your heart. And so I hope that you will join me in this conversation, that you take ownership in this conversation, that you understand the role that you should play in this conversation. So good afternoon, Mountaineer family. Good afternoon. Thank you. It is an absolute honor to be here with you today at West Virginia University for our first State of Diversity address. I would like to first thank Dean Bowman for that warm and wonderful welcome. It means a lot that I have you as a friend, a colleague, and that I'm able to call you family. I want to also thank his team for setting up such a beautiful occasion for us today. It means a lot, and your hospitality is greatly appreciated. But most importantly, I would like to thank President E. Gordon Gee for his continued support, his encouragement, and endless commitment to ensuring that each of us understands the power of our purpose, the importance of appreciating the talents that each of us bring each day, and understand that we all must watch out for one another, that for us to do this work collectively, it's going to take each of us so that we can create the West Virginia University place that we all will be proud to call home. On a personal note, I've only been here 17 months. I say only because we got a lot of work to do. and I plan to do that with you, together, arm in arm. As of fall 2019, 20% of our student enrollment and 12.6% of our faculty belongs to a self-identified class of diversity. While we celebrate the progress that we have made over the years, we also understand the greatness of this university and want to share our knowledge as a Big 12 institution to eager listeners, as well as to seek and to gain insight from scholars from around the globe. At West Virginia's flagship institution with a land grant obligation, West Virginia University is renewing our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. No matter who you are and no matter where you're from, we are here for you. During the 2018-2019 academic year, the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion submitted an application on behalf of West Virginia University for the Insight into Diversity Higher Education Excellence in Diversity Award, also known as the HEAT Award. This award is the only national award that honors individual institutions for being an outstanding example of universities that are committed to making diversity and inclusion a top priority across their campus. HEAT measures an institution's level of achievement and intensity of commitment in regards to broadening diversity and inclusion on campuses through initiatives, programs, and outreach, student recruitment, retention and completion, and hiring practices for faculty and staff. I am honored to say that after a pretty rigorous application process, West Virginia University received this national honor. Thank you to my Director of Innovation, Inclusion, and Outreach, Rob Lyons, for all of his hard work and his commitment in helping us receive this distinguished honor. Let's please give him a round of applause. I am also honored to say that that we've submitted that application again for 2019. And so it's my hope that in a few days we'll receive news that we've received that again. Stay tuned. Will y'all be cheering with me? All right. Upon entering into this role, again, as I've said, about 17 months, I've learned a great deal, and we have made some tremendous strides. In my interaction with faculty, I have heard some of your challenges, as well as celebrated with you as we relentlessly discover new methods and opportunities that will advance our great institution. We must continue to be innovative and committed to being global influencers. As scholars in our respective areas, we each must do our part to maintain our R1 status. As administrators, deans, and department chairs, we must reconnect to our why, the reason we started this journey, and encourage others to do the same. We must understand that it is our responsibility as a land-grant institution to encourage faculty members that find it their calling or heart's passion to center their research and work around diversity and inclusion disciplinary discussions as serious scholarship and not a specialized project. We must learn when to pull away from the traditional focuses of most research and use our license of curiosity to seek new interests and approaches that might eventually be seen as groundbreaking. We must be brave enough to not just think outside of the box, but to remove the box completely. And with it, removing its limits of thought, its burdens of boundaries, and help our teams soar. We must recognize when we ourselves need to grow in order to lead, and continue to educate ourselves on how we can best serve our scholastic minds of our peers. In order to assist our colleges with recruitment, retention, and the development of our faculty, we must first ensure that our selection committees are aware of their biases, those things that have not been recognized but need to be acknowledged. to guarantee that we are truly seeking out and bringing the best possible talents to this institution. In our onboarding of said talent, we must all do what is necessary to create an inclusive and welcoming environment for our new Mountaineer family. Remember when I said at the beginning that we are all family. You want to be welcomed, and it's our responsibility to welcome other members of our family. We need to listen for understanding when an individual makes themselves vulnerable enough to share when we are missing the mark. We must understand that while we are inclusive and that we embrace our beautifully diverse tapestry of faculty from around the globe, we also must provide spaces that allow for innovation, for navigation of issues and challenges to be raised. We must reimagine the manner in which we create, conduct, and celebrate resource groups, and ensure that we allow for our professors to have nurtured opportunities, for them to bring their full selves, that they will feel that they can be helped, supported, and flourish. We recruit rock stars to this institution, and we should make sure that they always have an opportunity to shine. And now to the backbone of our institution. I want to sincerely thank our staff for gifting us with your talents. You are the front lines to our children, our students, and the reassurance to our families. We want to thank you for your various skills and the passion that you bring each day to this campus. We understand that at times you do not seem to be seen, that you think that we don't see you, but we do. We love you for bringing your full selves. We love you for giving your best to us, and we appreciate the hard work that you do to keep us right side up. Can we please give them a round of applause? Before I move further, I want to say it's very difficult for me to stand behind a podium and read from paper. You will hear my heart. All of this is my heart, but I feel that it's important that I not miss points, that you understand that I take this job extremely seriously, that I listen to you however you've come to me, and that I want to make sure that your voices are heard in a very broad way. So please excuse my reading. Don't ever mistake it from being from my heart, all right? Can y'all do that with me? All right. To our undergraduates, our graduate students, our veterans, commuters, students who are parents, and to our PhD candidates, those students that have traveled the globe to get here, to our first-generation college students, the students that are from rural America, and those who are from urban communities, we have heard your call for more specialized programming and groups geared more toward your needs. Shortly upon my arrival to this university as vice president, my team conducted a campus-wide survey and held several focus groups that asked our students to express things that would positively add to their experience as Mountaineers. Those that participated proudly acknowledged that by being recognized as a Big 12 institution, we could no longer play small. And let me repeat that. We could no longer and can no longer play small. We must embrace the endless possibilities and opportunities to grow a place of genuine acceptance. We understand that our students do not want to simply be tolerated, but appreciated for who they are and for who they are becoming. We learn so much from this interaction, but resounding themes that manifest itself throughout the discussions in some way or another was that at times, many of you all felt excluded and misunderstood for various reasons. My team and I heard your suggestions and are working to strengthen partnership around the campuses to ensure that the programming and resources are widely broadcast about all the great things available to you. We understand that each of you desperately are seeking to find your place here at WVU, and we also understand that we're here for you, but we want you to know that we are here for you. In the Division for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, also known as DDEI or DEI, we have had a lot of heavy lifting over the very short time that my team has been pulled together. We have reestablished the Student Diversity Ambassadors Program that helps to train and develop those students that have shown desire to assist in sharing the mission and importance of a more inclusive and welcoming environment to their peers and to others. We have created a new position and hired our first Diversity Initiative and Community Engagement Director, Spencer Darden. Spencer, please acknowledge yourself. He is standing in the back. Spencer uses he and they pronouns, and he is very committed to the job that he does. Many of you all may have already met Spencer. If you haven't, he will be at your door. He is very committed to the work that we do, and he will be making a difference on this campus. He is a proud alumnus of WVU, and we are extremely blessed to have him here. He's returned back to this campus ready to work and ready to take on the challenge. We thank you for your commitment, Spencer. We have hired a new diversity outreach coordinator, which will officially become a part of a member of the DEI family shortly. Through a new partnership with the University Relations, we will have our first diversity, equity, inclusion communication director. This new hire will help to ensure that the mission and message of our office is widely spread, not just throughout our campuses, but throughout our great state and beyond. We have never really had an opportunity to market the work that we do. We've never been able to really market the commitment that the institution has had toward diversity. And if you take note of this beautiful drop here, this sign, it says at West Virginia University, we're renewing our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion. No matter who you are or where you're from, we are here for you. The reason why we think it needs to be publicized that way is because we don't want you to be in any doubt. We want you to understand that President Gee stands behind this mission, that he loves everyone who has called themselves mountaineers or supports the mountaineer family. And so we are committing today our commitment, our renewed energy. My team, along with their great talents, have worked with University Relations in regards to creating a new website. I want you to look out for that. When you walked in, I asked you if you heard the music from the soundtrack. How did you feel when you heard that? A little bit of energy, somewhat inspired? Well, I'll tell you, I felt a lot of inspiration. I always walk around inspired. But at the same time, I could see some of y'all eating y'all little cookies from insomnia, shaking your little heads, having conversations, and that's what we want you to do. On the website, you're going to find a soundtrack for justice, that thing that makes you move, that thing that maybe starts a conversation with one of your peers. Why did they pick this song for this month? Why did they think this was a hot song? I know I'm a champion, but did we have to hear it in song? Yes, because sometimes you need to be reminded. You need to understand why we brought you to this institution. No matter how many years you've been working with us, no matter how long you've been a part of the Mountaineer family, you need to recognize that we know you are of excellence, that we're happy that you've given us your talents, and we want you to shine again, limitless. I got away from my notes there. One thing I also want you to pay attention to is the rebranding. If you will look at these graphics throughout, you'll see our backdrop here, you'll see our backdrop there. You think that this is just a lot of tricks and things, right? But there's a lot of intentionality behind this. Our new graphics are made up of a mosaic image. And if you look at the different colors here and the shapes, they are all from different hues. They have different structures, but they all connect to a beautiful picture. And that is exactly how this Mountaineer family should see themselves. We are all from different places, but we come together as one beautiful picture. On this website, you heard me talk about music, but you'll also find podcasts and books. You'll find conversation starters, because we're going to be taking polls from you. We want to be able to know if you understand how much of yourself you bring each day. That's a trick question, but I'm giving you kind of a head start. We want you to be able to have some dialogue and come back. We're going to have profiles of faculty, staff, and students who are doing great things around this work. We're going to make sure that we meet you where you are because we understand that all of us are in different places. And while that's okay today, we don't expect you to stay where you are today. We want to grow together. Our office has increased their involvement with recruitment and retention efforts, and we've done that not just for students, but for faculty as well. Now, I want you to understand that as I've talked about a few of the things that we've done, that certainly does not exhaust the list of what we've done. We're just getting started. So I hope that you will stay with me. I hope that you will continue to engage with me because we can't do this work without you. As a Mountaineer family, we all must hold each other accountable for the ways in which we help create the campus atmospheres in which we desire. No matter if you are from main campus here in Morgantown or if you are in our Kaiser or Beckley campus, we must not be bystanders when we see hate, harassment, sexual assault, domestic violence, or discrimination taking place. It is on each of us to stand up and to speak up when we see harm being done to a fellow Mountaineer. We cannot allow ourselves excuses. It is all our responsibility. It is on each of us. So I asked you at the beginning, I talked about finding your why. So now I'm going to ask you to do something for me. I want you to center yourself, whatever that requires. If you need to look at the floor, if you need to look straight ahead, if you want to keep looking at me, if you need to close your eyes, if you need to hold yourself, whatever you need to do, I need you to center yourself. And I want you to be a part of the work. I want you to understand the power in our purpose. I want you to understand this is a part of self-reflection. Even though we're in a big space, we can do this self-reflection together, and it's necessary. I asked you earlier to understand that we need to reconnect to our why. And while that is individual work, and most of us will do this in the privacy of our homes and our office or in our cars, there is one collective why that we can do together. And I want you to hone in on this. Why are you a Mountaineer? I'll ask that question again as you take time to center yourself and connect with your inner side, right? Like, why did you come here? Why did you accept the application? Why did you find your way up these windy roads to find a place here as a Mountaineer? Why are you a Mountaineer? In some of your minds, a Mountaineer is simply the mascot, a person you have seen in buckskins with a musket on game day. But in fact, the true definition of a Mountaineer is someone who climbs. A Mountaineer understands the importance of being prepared, focused, ready for what's ahead. A Mountaineer understands that there will be uncertainties and at times doubt, but they are not afraid to ask for help. They seek out more information or do their part to find a solution to counteract the challenges in front of them. A Mountaineer cheers others on and never leaves an individual behind. We understand and take great pride in caring for one another. When we see someone hurting, we don't just climb over them, but instead we lend our hand and our hearts to help them up, dust them off as they work to get back on course. When I think about the definition, an image formulates in my mind as someone that sees an obstacle or challenge in front of them, but they refuse to be defeated. We are up for the challenge. We celebrate and find value in each of our differences, acknowledging that we are 33,000 voices with different thoughts, theories, and beliefs. But when it comes to calling ourselves Mountaineers, we stand united as one West Virginia family, climbing together. We must trust this climb. And as the Vice President for the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, I am proud to call each of you all Mountaineers. I look forward to doing the work with you. I trust this climb, and I trust you as my Mountaineer family. So when I say, I hope y'all know this call, let's go! Mountaineers. Let's go! Mountaineers. Let's go! Mountaineers. We have work to do. Let's go, Mountaineer family. Now, it's my understanding we have time for some questions, and I want to make sure I lend myself to those. If you have questions, please just stand or raise your hand, and I'll be happy to address those. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
So how do we be the best allies for diverse communities? And in particular, how do we co-do the work so that it does not feel or appear that the people in the majority are somehow taking over, but also not abusing the time and talents of the people who are of diverse groups because they're the smaller number?
Right. So let me say, we are 80% white. I can't do this work without the 80%. That's real talk. And so at the end of the day, it requires all of us to understand what we need to do. That means that when it comes to diversity, let me just say this: there is no one person or one type that can do the work. It is all of us. The first work that you hear me talk about is what is your why, centering yourself, reflecting, doing the internal work. So the first thing is, what is your purpose? What do you feel you can do? If it's sitting in a space, and when we talk about the website, we're going to have some implicit bias trainings on there. So you can click in and do some work on your own without having to be in an open space like this directly. We're going to have book examples as to certain books you can read. There's a book called White Fragility that talks about the different things that, people struggle with when it comes to doing this type of work. You've been told one thing throughout your whole life, or you really have never been exposed to a minority population, and so it's all foreign to you. It's all new to you. It can sometimes be scary, and we have to be honest to say that. Some people are afraid of making mistakes. The reality is, from each mistake, we learn. Each mistake, we learn. Each mistake, we learn. That's where we are. We are R1 institution. And one of the things I think is really amazing is that we are scholars on this campus. We know how to take a problem and break that problem completely down to nothing. And then we figure out on each part of it to find a solution. And I believe we can do the same thing here. The reality is that I can't do this fight without you. I need your voice as well as you need mine. And so when we begin to see it that way, when we begin to understand that if we're doing it as a family and not one group versus another group, or this person or that person, then we'll move forward and we'll see it. Now, in saying that, there also needs to be spaces that people can feel as though they can navigate without having any mask on. And what that means is that I can walk into a room and not have to do anything other than just be myself. And the reality is we also have to realize that there are people on our campus that doesn't always feel like they can bring their full selves. I'm going to go ahead and give you the answer to the first question that I asked you. I asked you how many of you all can bring your full self to the campus. And sometimes when I've asked this question, people have said, oh, I bring about 80% to work. It depends on if my kids kept me up all night. Right? Someone else said it depends on if I'm not feeling well today, or I'll try to bring 110%. But you have some people on this campus can only bring 30% of themselves. They bring 100%, 120% of themselves professionally because they have to prove that they're able to be here. Not because they're not qualified to be here, not because they don't walk in a spirit of excellence to be here, but because they feel as though they have to prove more than someone else may have to. They bring 30% of themselves because if they really brought their full self, meaning everything that they are, everything that makes them up, their race, their religion, their gender, that it would not be received well. And so people have to be aware of that it takes a lot sometimes for individuals to present their vulnerabilities to you when we miss the mark as a campus. And we have to respect that. And I think the more when we talk about that HEAT award, I'm sorry you asked me one question and I went in, but when we talk about that HEAT award, why that's a big deal is because the reality is I was born and raised in West Virginia. We're a predominantly white state. This is a historically white institution. But that does not mean that we don't see or should see the values of the different insight that come from our populations of diversity. The reality is we should be, regardless of how anyone else wants to identify our state, is that we should be the beacon for the state. We are the beacon as a flagship institution. So when you say, how do we do the work? We must do the work because of our obligation as a land-grant institution, or we are failing our purpose. We are failing our purpose. And so my thing is I'm trying to empower you to understand as Mountaineer families, it's our responsibility to own every bit of who we are. That means the historic part of being predominantly white, but also understanding that we are a Big 12 institution with global influencers that are walking the heels of this campus. And so the only way we can do that is if we do it collectively together. If we pull back some of those offenses that we get when someone challenges us, when they say that we're not taking their feelings into consideration, or they're not taking some of the obstacles into consideration, we have to stop being so offended and begin to open up and listen. And I think that's how we all should be in order for us to move together. So I'm sorry I went all in about that, but I'm very passionate about my work. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. I will tell you that our institutional research office is looking at some of the ways that they collect data. What you have to understand is that it's the way people identify to us, if they're willing to identify. And I think for us, what we have to do is we have to create an environment where people feel comfortable to do that. And I'm not going to say that some people have not already come into themselves and are able to identify who they are, but as a campus, there are some individuals that don't feel like that is the case. And so my office, along with partners around the campus, are working on ways to continue to find those spaces for people, but also educating the mass about the need for that. I also think that we need to recognize that when we become more aware of our shortcomings, we also understand that just because we may not know how to get there doesn't mean we can't get there. Does that make sense? We have the LGBTQ Center. We have other pockets of the campus that talks about sexual orientation, but collection of data is one of the things the Institutional Research Office is looking into doing. Okay. What other questions do we have? If y'all give me space to talk, I'll talk. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. As being a community member and a delegate at the state, how can the community support WVU when we hear these different grievances for different communities that are marginalized? How can we, as being citizens of Morgantown, make sure that your students are welcome beyond the college and the university?
Sure. So one of the things that I say this, we do have the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, but we're one office. It's not just my office's responsibility, it's not just my staff's responsibility, it's the campus-wide responsibility. And so I think one of the things that you will see in regards to what we've just talked about is a renewed commitment. I can't speak for all that's heard in the community, but I can tell you if we do a culture survey, and we did that for all of our students, and we did that for all of our graduate students, that we're committed to this. You know, we can't change a person's experience. All we can do is hopefully make it become more healthier. Right? That's all we can do. We understand, and we're not trying to take away a person's voice. The reality is, you know, my experience, your experience, and someone else's experience is always going to be different. What we would hope to be able to establish with our commitment is that when they leave, by the time they cross the stage, that they'll be very proud to say, I learned a lot about myself, I've taught a lot of other people about themselves, and we are collectively one family. And that includes the community. Because at the end of the day, there's things that happen on this campus that we're working on that we can't always tell people because we're still in the process of working on it. So it really makes no sense to come out and say we're doing this if we haven't a full formulated plan. The other thing is I think you have to understand as a community member that they're not just, and I'll say this as I was a delegate, so I can speak to this. In the community, you can, on your own, determine if you want to do a resolution. You can determine if you want to do an organized group. You can determine if you want to do a plan or a town hall meeting. We can do some things here, but we want to make sure that we're bringing all of our families together. And so some of that stuff takes time. We understand also that the hurt that people feel or the harm that people feel, those wounds run deep, and they ran deep probably before they got here as well. And so we try to, when you hear me go back to meeting people where they are, we meet people where they are. We try to provide support while we're planning. And then when we plan, we try to build a stronger environment. And so as a community member, what we would say to you is respect that we are trying to renew our commitment, not that we didn't have a commitment, because obviously we receive awards for what we've done, that we are seeking to continue to have that commitment, and that we're continuing to support our students as well as, because you heard me say land grant institution. land grant commitment, land grant opportunity. And so what your support can be to us is to continue to stand with us as we are growing, be patient with us as we're growing, and continue to be a partner. Yeah? What other questions? Anybody? There's a lot of people in here. Any students got questions? Yes.
How could students and student leaders, you mentioned thinking outside the box and then not just doing that, but removing the box. How can we do that, and what is your, I guess, vision, down the line for what that might look like?
So I'm not gonna, so I would ask you this, and it's almost like the work that we do, a lot of times people want a blueprint for the work. And I can tell you, one, do the implicit bias test, right? Everyone in this room, if you haven't done it, should do it. You need to know where you are, right? You need to understand the stuff you have to work on. You need to understand the things that you thought you were cool with, but you really find out you probably got an issue here. Or I found myself arguing with something sometimes on the test. Like, that's not true. I was still trying to learn the test. And oftentimes in life, we can argue that we're still trying to learn something. So we made a mistake, but we're trying to learn something. And instead of listening to the lesson, we fight with the test. And oftentimes we interact with people and we fight with the person or the person's theory, the person's thoughts, the person's emotions versus reflecting on the lesson, right? And so what I would say as a student is first connect with yourself, understanding what you can do, not being fearful of what you don't know, understanding that you're supposed to have curiosity, right? That's one of our values of the institution, that you are being accountable for what you don't know, but also being accountable for how much you try to learn. That makes sense? And so when we talk about our website, we're trying to make it an easy location for people to start to do the work. That doesn't mean you should just stop at our website. That is not at all what we're saying. But we're saying we're trying to connect you with some data or some information that begins to get you to think on how to be in this space, in this work, and how to become comfortable. I also will say to you that nothing about this work is comfortable. I don't care if I have the title of vice president. Nothing about this work is comfortable. Because whenever you're about to make a big shift in things, you're going to be a little uncomfortable. How many of you are people, when you came to this institution, when you decided to move here or change positions, you got a little uncomfortable because of the uncertainties? When you decided to come to law school or when you decided to get into your major, you weren't certain about what that teacher was going to expect from you, but you knew you could do it, or you had to fight through it. You had to have courage enough to get through it, right? And so, and the reality is that you have to understand within yourself that you have the capabilities, you're ready, and you're able to do this work. Don't let anybody tell you that you have to look a certain way, be a certain way, or have a certain knowledge. You can learn everything, honestly. And that we are in this office, we're always willing to have conversations. We do trainings, implicit bias trainings. We do all kinds of different trainings. I can go through a list of things, but you'll see that on the website. Plug the website, diversity, equity, and diversity.edu.wvu. I think that's right. No, it's diversity.wvu.edu. Too fast. I know my own website, I promise. But don't think that you can't do the work. And I think that the very first thing, when I talk about that is all of our work, that you're a Mountaineer family, that each of us can do this climb together, I meant that. And I think that to all of you all, you need to understand that. Remove the doubt. When I say think bigger than ourselves, we're a Big 12 institution. And when I say stop playing small, we have to stop thinking that we can't be the global leaders that we already are. That title of Big 12 is not just given in happenstance. President Gee talks about the power of your purpose. He talks about making sure you're strategic. He talks about reflecting on the internal work that you can do personally for the institution so that you can manifest that out to others. That's not just conversation. That's real. And so you connect back to your why. And so why did you get into, what's your major?
Law.
You're in the law.
Yes.
And so if you connect back to your why did you want to become a lawyer, right? I mean, you might want to say you wanted to become a lawyer because you're going to get rich, but you're not going to get rich right away. And I'm saying that person because my last name was Poore, okay? But I want you to understand that all of us can do this work. I don't care how many years you've been on this earth, how much wisdom you carry. We all can learn something new. I read books that don't always go along with my personal beliefs, but because I have to grow as a person, I have to make sure that I'm able to, when I really say meet people where they are, that means that I'm able to remove myself from what I may think and understand that I have to grow. I charged that in my statements. I said to you that we have to pull back sometimes and know when we need to grow in order to lead. So as a student, it doesn't matter what your title is, just as a student, as a mountaineer, you have an obligation to lead. Everybody in this space has an obligation to lead. It's not my office's responsibility. My office's responsibility is to consult, to provide information, to give you guidance, but we can't do the work. We have 33,000 people that are expected to do this work, from professors to deans to chairs to students to staff. And the reality is, in order for us to truly make a mark on this globe the way that we can, we have to be able to do it together. We have to be willing to do it together. I mean, we heard me talk about mountains, and people say within you, you have the power to move a mountain. I don't know if you ever heard that before. You have the power to move a mountain. Now we were talking about climbing. Now we're beyond that. So I said I met you where you were when we first started talking. We were talking about climbing. Now I'm talking about moving the mountain. I can, within me, do what I can do. The power of one person. It is willing yourself into doing the work you need to do. But what would that mountain do, and how many mountains can we move if we did it together? How many mountains can we move? How many minds can we shift? How much can we make a difference, not just in West Virginia? We got people from across the globe. They're taking this information back to their countries. They're taking this information back to their states. They're taking this information back to their families. But it starts with us. It starts with us. And you got to get ready to get uncomfortable to get ready to make an environment that is comfortable for others. Does that make sense? You got to get uncomfortable. But you also have to understand that we're all in this fight. It's not just my fight or your fight or somebody who's underrepresented's fight. And we also have to understand as underrepresented people that the reality is we can't do this fight with others. So when we say that we're one mountaineer, we're not breaking it down by percentages. We're saying one. And so when you hear me talk and when you have a concern, I want you to feel comfortable coming into my office. I want you to feel comfortable talking to my staff. I want you to be vulnerable enough to share your concerns because we're going to work on it together. But I also expect you to bring me the solutions. Help me get to some solutions. We're not here just to fix problems. We're here to help us all do this work together. And so we have a lot of things that we are doing great, and I just have to be very clear, we are doing some wonderful things. We are doing some amazing things. But we're also growing, and that's amazing too. And so, any other question? I am open. Again, y'all got a little time with me, so take it. Yes. One more question? One more question. Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I have a question as it pertains to, currently I'm studying campus racial climate and looking at student demands as interventions at predominantly white institutions. So studying a lot of the campus unrest that took place in some of the past few years and things of that nature. One of the things that I see consistently that has come to the top of that demand list is for there to be some sort of required diversity education curriculum or racial or social justice curriculum that is required to be a part of the core. So when we talk about how we are preparing our students and how we are educating them, what are we doing formally as an institution to be intentional about the ways we are educating? So you're right, it's not just the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, but how are we sharing this with other colleges and it trickled down so that in the classroom, students are able to learn how to become the type of mountaineer that we want them to be able to operate in the courtroom, to operate in the medical exam room, to operate in the classroom, and have a full and clear understanding of what it means to be diverse, or to embrace and not tolerate diversity, but truly understand it and understand their own implicit biases. How are we formalizing that?
So I'll tell you a few things. As far as the WVU as a family, as a whole, as all the colleges, I've talked with the provost Marianne Reed. One of the things we already are doing is that we are going around to different colleges. We have, and I'm not going to name them, but we have 4 big colleges here on campus that we have talked with the deans. We are training them each about implicit biases. We're making sure that when you heard me talk before about search committees and chairs, being able to appoint people who have had implicit bias training, because that affects faculty and staff, which also affects the students and how they learn, because it's very important that we make sure that all of us understand that, right? Not, you can teach it and not know it, but it's important for us to know it so it sits and it resonates, right? So the one thing is making sure that we're hiring faculty that's aware of it, educating the faculty that's here about what they can do. We're adding certain statements to our syllabi to make sure that those informations are shared at the very beginning of when a student sits down. When you talk about the medical field, one of the things, they have a summit that's coming up very shortly that actually talks about diversity and how do you begin to care for and making sure that you're communicating in a way that connects to diverse communities so that we're not overlooking or trying to do one type of healing, right? Like everyone has different needs, different wants, and they communicate differently. So educating our students about that, I think that's already taking place. The other thing that we're doing is regarding, and we're working on this now with our equity assurance side, is we're working on a diversity certificate so that we are not just doing it for one class, but we're doing it throughout 4 years of the college career so that people can be able to see it, but not when they just graduate with a master's. They can also say, not only am I have a master's degree from West Virginia University, which I'm very proud of, or a bachelor's as a West Virginia University graduate, but I also have a certificate in diversity awareness, a diversity of equity inclusion certificate. Not a lot of universities are doing that. We are in the process of doing that. Again, I've been here 17 months. My team is very committed to that, and we're working hard to get that done. In regards to the current classes that we have on campus, some of these things I told you before is going to take time to develop in regards to like the certificate, making sure that we have the curriculum down where it's sound, making sure that we are educating our deans and our chairs. Not going to take as much time because we have Spencer here who's doing awesome work. But when it comes down to our current class, we're making sure that we're having that conversation as well. And so as far as curriculum, we're talking with the colleges that are allowing us to, not, and everyone's allowed us to, but are very committed to or have the manpower, woman power to be able to do that so that we can get into classrooms now. But one thing that I will say to you is we want to make sure that we have sustainable programs. We don't want to just put our hand on and say we did it and check it off and say it's done. We want to make sure that when we present it to the university, when we present it to our students, we can actually be proud of the work that we've created, not just to say that we have pacified a situation. We want to actually have change. And so in order for that to actually happen, we have to make sure we have the right stuff in place at the right time and that we launch it at the right time. So it's being done, it's being worked on, and we're doing what we can to address the students who are currently here so that we can give them that type of environment, but it will still take some time. Did that answer you?
Yes. I still have some more
I'm sure you
questions,
do.
but
Yes.
you know, we can talk about that later. I was just curious to know, as it pertains to the required piece, is that something that you support?
Yes.
To have.
I think
you
I
know,
just
all
said
across-
that in
all-
regards
all
to
across board.
the 4-year certificate. I think that that's definitely something. And in
Right.
regards to also talking to the deans that we have now, that we've talked with them about that. Not just for, there's other things that comes down to faculty and staff too. We're not just talking about students. It's about making sure that the faculty feel supported when they're providing these curriculums. So when you're asking about just creating curriculum, the responsibility for me is not just to create it, like I stated before, is to make sure that when we create it, they have a supportive community that support what they're creating, what we've created. And so unless I train my faculty, unless I train and have the support of my deans and my chairs, any curriculum that we have won't be successful without that training. And so right now, we are laying the foundation to make sure that whatever certificate, whatever courses, whatever we do is sustained by the support of all the parties that need to be supported. And so the groundwork is being laid to make sure that our students have everything they need to proudly be a graduate of West Virginia University with all the supports and responsibilities and privileges of a diverse curriculum. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions, or that was the last one? Okay. Well, I want to thank you very, very, very much. I hope I answered some of your questions. We look forward to having more conversations with you. This will not be our last, unless President Gee tells me that it is. But I hope that he will not. But it's very kind of you all to come out today, and I appreciate your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Vice President Poore. As usual, that was magnificent and fantastic and educational. For those of you who may have been paying attention to me, and I hope you were not, I was writing furiously in the front. I always learn when I hear Meshea speak. I wanted to close out by identifying some of the themes that I heard and am taking away from today's address. Family, community, ownership, team. And team means trust, engagement, understanding, and acceptance. And we all strive for that. And with that, we get positivity, we get hope. We get research, curiosity, and discovery, which allows us to grow even further. We can be inclusive and welcoming to all if we do this, but we always have to guard against the existence, in all of us, of implicit bias. To counter that, to take power over it with intentional, responsible, wise action. And what I really took away today was the question of why. That was really wonderful. Why? We need to think about why we do what we do. We work to provide a just, equitable, fair, open society where all can be included and all can thrive. We happen to do that by being a university community. And that's a noble calling for all of us. And so I'll close with 2 words of my own that I took away from today's address, which are the importance of celebrating and striving together. So thank you so much. Thank you for being my friend and our friend. Thank you for the address. Thank you all very much for being here. Let's give Meshea another big round of applause. Thank you again for coming. I hope you have a wonderful day.